My house used to exhaust me before I'd done a single thing in it. I'd walk in and immediately feel the weight of everything that needed doing. The counter that needed wiping, the pile that had been there so long I'd stopped seeing it, the drawer I couldn't quite close anymore. I wasn't living in my home. I was managing it badly. What's strange is that I grew up in Osaka, in a house that never felt that way. My mother's kitchen was calm. My grandmother's rooms had breathing space. Nobody in that house spent their Saturday in a cleaning frenzy, and yet nothing was ever dirty. Nothing was ever out of place for long. I moved overseas in my late 20s, and slowly, without noticing, I left all of that behind. By the time I was in my 50s, my home looked nothing like the one I grew up in, and I'd convinced myself that was just how adult life looked: busy, cluttered, always slightly behind. It wasn't until my early 60s, when I went back to Japan and really looked at how my family still lived, that I understood what I'd forgotten. And the thing I'd forgotten wasn't a cleaning technique. It was a philosophy, a completely different relationship with mess. One where mess is prevented rather than managed, intercepted rather than battled, made structurally impossible rather than repeatedly cleaned up. The Japanese call it, informally, invisible cleaning. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Here is the central idea, and it's simpler than the cleaning industry wants you to believe. Most of us clean reactively. Mess appears, we deal with it. Mess builds up, we have a big session, we exhaust ourselves. It returns within days. The products industry loves this cycle. More mess means more products. More products means more spending. A home that never gets truly messy in the first place is a threat to that model. Japanese invisible cleaning breaks the cycle at the source. The goal is not to clean better. The goal is to design your daily life so that serious mess almost never accumulates. Small actions, constant and habitual, intercept disorder before it settles. By the time you'd normally be pulling out the mop, there's nothing to mop. Let me show you exactly how this works, room by room, habit by habit. It starts at the door. In Japanese homes, the entrance, the genkan, is not just a hallway. It's a threshold, a deliberate transition zone between the outside world and your home's interior. Shoes come off immediately upon entry. This is non-negotiable, and it matters more than it sounds, because the single biggest source of floor dirt in any home is what comes in on the soles of shoes. Eliminate that at the door, and you have already reduced your floor cleaning needs dramatically. But the genkan does something else. It forces a pause. You arrive, you transition, and everything you've brought in, bags, coats, mail, shopping, has a designated place right there at the entrance. Nothing wanders further into the house than it needs to. The principle is simple. If it doesn't belong in your immediate routine right now, it doesn't enter the living space. When I came back from Osaka and looked at my own entrance, I saw the problem immediately. There was no system. Things came in and drifted wherever. A bag on the kitchen chair, a coat on the back of the sofa, mail on the counter, then the table, then lost, creating even a basic version of the genkan principle. A shelf, a basket, defined spots. Change my home's baseline within a week. The one-touch rule. This is the habit that, once you adopt it, makes you realize how much of your clutter is caused by a single failure, putting something down temporarily. The one-touch rule is straightforward. When you handle an object, you deal with it completely. Mail goes directly to where it will be read and then filed, recycled, or acted on, not left on the counter for later. Dishes are washed when you're done with them, not stacked in the sink. Groceries are unpacked and put away immediately, not left in bags on the table. Later is where clutter lives. Every pile in your home is made of things that were going to be dealt with later. My grandmother had a phrase she used when I was young, though she wouldn't have called it a rule. She'd say, "Finish the thing. Don't start the next thing until you finish the current one." It sounds small. It transforms a home. Clear surfaces are not an aesthetic choice. They are a maintenance strategy. Japanese interiors tend toward clear, open surfaces. Most people assume this is about style. Minimalism as a design preference. It's actually functional. Surfaces with nothing on them take seconds to wipe. Surfaces covered in objects take minutes, and the objects need to be moved and replaced, which means the task feels larger, which means you delay it, which means things get worse. The solution is storage, not display. Cabinets, sliding doors, baskets, drawers. The Japanese use these aggressively, not to hide things chaotically, but to give everything a specific home that isn't a visible surface. When things live inside storage rather than on top of it, cleaning a room takes a fraction of the time. I spent years displaying things on my kitchen counter that I used maybe twice a week. When I put them away, genuinely away, with a place, my counter became something I could wipe in 30 seconds. 30 seconds. That's invisible cleaning. The time investment disappears. I want to pause here for a moment because there's something I wrote that fits directly into what I'm telling you. After I came back from that trip to Japan, after I started rebuilding these habits in my own home at 63, slowly recovering what I'd spent 40 years forgetting, I started writing it all down, not as instructions, more as a record of what was changing and why, what each habit felt like to adopt, where the resistance came from, what my mother and grandmother had known that I'd abandoned. It became a book. I called it Coming Home Clean, because that's what it felt like, not cleaning my house. Coming home to a way of living I'd always known and lost. It's in the pinned comment below this video. I hear from readers regularly now. Susan from New Zealand told me she read it during a difficult period and said it gave her something practical to hold on to when everything else felt chaotic. Robert from Edinburgh said his wife had been trying to get him to change his habits for years, and nothing worked until he read it. He didn't know why it landed differently, but it did. Francesca from Rome said she read the chapter on the one-touch rule and immediately got up and dealt with the pile of mail she'd been walking past for 3 weeks. It's there if you want it. Now back to the kitchen, because this is where most invisible cleaning either succeeds or fails. The kitchen, reset before you cook. If mess has a birthplace, it's the kitchen. And yet in Japanese homes, the kitchen often looks untouched, even after a full meal has been prepared and eaten. This is not magic. It's sequence. Japanese invisible cleaning in the kitchen begins before cooking starts. The counter is cleared. The sink is empty. Everything needed is ready. This takes 2 minutes, and it matters enormously because cooking in a cluttered kitchen creates exponentially more mess than cooking in a clear one. You don't have space to work, so things pile up. You can't find what you need, so you pull out more things. By the time the food is ready, the kitchen is a disaster before you've even eaten. Reset first. 2 minutes before you cook. The difference in what you face afterward is not small. The second principle is simultaneous cleaning. While water boils, wipe the counter. While something simmers, wash the knife and return it. Waiting time is cleaning time. By the time the meal is served, half the cleanup is already done without any additional effort. It happened in the gaps that would otherwise have been idle. Japanese kitchens also tend to have fewer tools. One good knife, one reliable pan, tools chosen for longevity rather than novelty. Every gadget that doesn't earn its place is a future mess. When you reduce the number of objects to manage, you reduce future cleaning before it happens. That is invisible cleaning in its most literal form. The bathroom, daily 1-minute resets. Bathrooms accumulate mess silently. moisture, soap residue, water spots, hair. The conventional response is weekly scrubbing. The Japanese response is daily interception. After every shower, walls wiped, floor dried, squeegee used. This takes 90 seconds and permanently prevents the mold and staining that requires serious cleaning to undo. Most people wait until mold appears and then fight it. Invisible cleaning stops mold before it starts. The cleaning industry would rather sell you the mold remover. The Japanese grandmother would tell you not to let it grow. Personal responsibility in the bathroom also matters. Each person's toiletries have a designated place and return there immediately after use. This sounds obvious and is almost never practiced in a shared bathroom. When it is practiced, the bathroom stays calm, without anyone being responsible for maintaining it collectively. Daily 1-minute resets, a wipe of the sink, a rinse of the tub, a straightened towel mean that the weekly deep clean almost never needs to be a deep clean anymore. The work has already been done in invisible increments. The bedroom, the nighttime reset. The bedroom is where invisible cleaning has its most emotional effect. What you wake up to sets the tone for the entire day. Walking into disorder first thing in the morning costs you something, a low-level stress, a sense of things not being under control before you've done anything at all. Walking into order does the opposite. It's a quiet signal that you are on top of things, that the day begins from a stable place. The Japanese nighttime reset is simple. Before sleep, everything returns to where it belongs. Books to shelves, clothes folded or hung, not on the chair, not on the floor in their place. The surface of the room returned to its resting state. This takes 5 minutes at most. But waking up to a room that's already reset is worth far more than 5 minutes of calm. I resisted this habit longer than almost any other when I was rebuilding my routines after 60. It felt unnecessary. I was tired. The room would just get messy again tomorrow. But within 2 weeks of doing it consistently, I noticed that my mornings were genuinely different, quieter. The day felt more manageable from the first moment. That's not nothing. At 72, I would not give that 5 minutes back for anything. Laundry, small and constant rather than large and periodic. Laundry left unmanaged is one of the most reliable sources of visible domestic chaos. The pile on the chair, the basket that overflows, the folded items that sit on the bed for 2 days because putting them away got delayed. Japanese households tend to wash smaller loads frequently rather than large loads occasionally. Clothes never accumulate into a pile because they're washed before the pile forms. Folding happens immediately when the wash is done, not later, not when there's time, immediately. And folding is done carefully so that things fit their storage properly. When storage works, clothes don't migrate back onto chairs and floors. This is the same principle as everything else. Small, consistent action prevents the large accumulation that requires serious intervention. The mental layer. I want to end here because I think it's the most important part and the most overlooked. Japanese invisible cleaning is not only physical. There is a mental dimension that underlies all of it. The understanding that your space reflects your state, that clutter is not just inconvenient, but carries weight, occupies attention, signals unfinished business to your nervous system, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. The Japanese approach to this is release. When something is finished, it's finished. An object that has served its purpose is let go. A task that's done is done completely. There is no leaving things in a state of incompletion, half put away, half dealt with, half finished, because that half state is where mess lives and where mental load accumulates. A home maintained this way doesn't just look different, it feels different. There is a quality of calm in a space where nothing is unresolved, where everything has its place and is in it, where you are not being quietly asked by your environment to attend to something you haven't gotten to yet. That quality of calm is what I remembered when I walked into my cousin's apartment in Osaka. It's what I'd forgotten existed, and it's what I've spent the last decade rebuilding in my own home, one small habit at a time. You don't need to change everything at once. Start with one thing tonight. Reset your kitchen before you cook. Remove your shoes at the door. Handle one piece of mail completely instead of putting it down temporarily. Apply the one-touch rule to the next 10 things you pick up. Pick one. Do it consistently for a week. You'll see the difference not just in the room, but in how you feel walking into it. And if you want to go deeper into how I rebuilt these habits after 60, the specific moments where things shifted, the resistance I felt, and what finally made it stick, coming home clean is in the pinned comment below. It's the most personal thing I've written. The mess that seems permanent almost never is. It just needs a different approach, one that's simpler, older, and far more effective than anything currently sitting on the cleaning products shelf.